Welcome to Issues, and I'm your host, Richard Smith. This evening we're going to have a very, very special Mother's Day program, and instead of 30 minutes, we'll actually be going 1 hour this evening, and you will enjoy listening to the answers from the four mothers that we will have. We have with us first Maria Nelson. Maria, welcome to Issues.
Thank you.
It's so very nice to have you. Now, my first question, Maria, is because you are brought up your child, and both you and your husband are divorced. But you brought your child up in that atmosphere. Do you think that raising your child in a home where divorce has taken place, that there are any more struggles in that home as compared to a two-family home?
I don't actually, and well, not in my situation. I had a very participatory ex-husband, and all decisions were made in consultation with each other. So I was one of the lucky ones.
Yeah. Would you consider that normal as you compare the divorce home with the two-family home?
In talking with other mothers, apparently not. Most people can't believe the participation that my ex-husband, or the role that he played in rearing our daughter. Yeah.
What are some of the key factors that both you and your husband did in terms of bringing up your daughter? By the way, you have an adult daughter now, right?
She's 21, yes.
So what are some of the key factors that you and your husband did in terms of bringing up your child living in two separate homes?
I think the main thing we did was communicate often. So pretty much daily. Not only did we talk to each other daily about our daughter's day and what was going on and daily decisions, but he communicated with her. They talked daily, as much as or even more often than some fathers who lived in the home with their daughter. And that is, when talking with friends and, the types of decisions and conversations that we had, those weren't the types of conversations that they were having with their husbands in the same home or their husbands with the children in the same home. So,
very interesting. Now, in terms of where your daughter spent most of the time, was your home considered the home where your daughter was most of the time?
Most of the time. Every single Wednesday evening, she spent with her dad. And every other weekend, she spent with her dad. And that every other weekend, she would go there after school on Friday evenings, and she would come home on Monday afternoons after school. So it was the full weekend. So all the activities that had to be done, birthday parties, if it happened to fall on Daddy's weekend, Daddy had to take it to the birthday party. Piano lessons, violin lessons.
You were telling me
sports activities.
You were telling me a story before we went on the air concerning your daughter's hair, Hair.
Yes.
Share that with us.
Well, many years, most of my life, I had very long hair actually. Childhood, right up into adulthood, only wear this short style literally the last couple of years. And this father, ex-husband, trying to tell me how to comb and care for our daughter's hair.
In terms of shampooing,
the products that I put in her hair, and I was very lucky. Yeah. And in the beginning, when she was very young, she spent every weekend there, and he washed her hair. Wow. She was a little girl. She was 2 and 3 years old, and this daddy was washing her hair, plaiting her hair, everything.
That truly is excellent. You had mentioned communication as one of the keys. Is there something else some other advice that you could give to mothers who are in your position? sometimes people would say mothers really are the key to relationships between husbands and wives, between children and mother, between children and their mother, that mothers really are the key. You've mentioned communication is one of the vital keys that one must have in terms of even an intact home or when their divorce takes place. But outside of communication, is there something else that you can remember that you personally did as a mother to enhance that relationship?
I do actually. I remember when we first separated, children are young, you like to reassure them that you love them. And every time I told my daughter that I loved her, I told her, and your daddy loves you too. Wow. Every time. I said, I love you. Yeah. And your daddy loves you too. Every time.
And I hope those of you listening can pick up on those couple of things that Maria has indicated. She mentioned communication is a vital part. And also, she indicated that when she told her daughter that she loves her, she also said that her daddy loves her. Truly a great mother. Let me ask you, there's a lot of gang violence now, and even we understand that young girls are now participating in the gang violence taking place in Bermuda. I'm going to make a tremendous assumption that your daughter never got involved in that type of gang violence. And what was it that you as a mother did to nurture her that participating in gang violence didn't even come across her mind?
She was busy. We literally had an activity most evenings of the week. She did violin. She did dance, and there were many dance classes. So there were 2 or 3 dance classes a week. There was an individual violin class, and then she would do orchestra. So she was too busy. Mm-hmm. Her time was accounted for. If she wasn't involved in an activity, it was relaxing time. We needed those Friday evenings or whatever at home, and she didn't need to be wandering around the neighborhood. She was a busy child, and when she wasn't busy, we were both relaxing from the activities that she was involved in. Okay. And that started very young. She did her first activity. She wasn't even 2 years old. She did tumble tots. So she continued to be busy until she left for university. Wow. She continued with her violin lessons until then.
So as I'm understanding, one of the keys as we listen, as mothers and fathers listen and watch, one of the keys in terms of avoiding gang violence is to make sure that your child is involved in after-school activities. The violin that you pointed out, sports, different things that your children should be involved in. That is excellent. Now, most mothers today work because of the economy that we have. Do you believe that mothers who work, that the child or the children in the home, that they're missing out on something because there is a working mother?
Not necessarily, because hopefully there are some other members of your family who can play a role in helping out. So yes, I was a working mother. I am a working mother. And on those days when I left to go to work very early, my mother would take my daughter to school. And on the other occasions, maybe I couldn't pick up my daughter from school, my father picked her up. So it's nice when you have other family members who can help and be there when you can't. Close family members, not a friend or, a family member, so that relationship with that member, a grandparent, can be nurtured as well.
Okay. In the next few minutes that we have, individuals have been going to our website and answering the question that we have on the survey question that we have on the website. I'm going to ask you to respond to that. And that question is, mothers more than fathers are important when raising children. What's your answer to that question?
I would have to say no, because of my experience. I'll tell another story when my daughter was very young, and she says, "Mom, what would happen to me if something happened to you?" I said, "Well, you'd be with your daddy." Oh, okay. So
was not a problem.
It was not a problem. That answered the question. I was important, but I was also replaceable.
Let me challenge that somewhat. When a child goes to school, who goes to school with that child? The mother or the father? The first day of school?
The mother.
Generally, when a child goes shopping, who takes that child shopping?
The mother.
Generally, at home, if a child is sick and cries for a mother or father, generally, who does the child cry for?
The mother. But I think that's only because society still has those old-fashioned ideas, and women are still raised to be more nurturing. But it doesn't mean that a father can't be nurturing, and that if he was the only parent, that he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But usually in most relationships, if one person has that skill set, the other person lets that person lead.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the other person doesn't have the skills.
Okay. So you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, the same nurturing skill set that a mother has, the father has that skill set also, but society doesn't allow the father to express those skill set.
I'm not going to say it doesn't allow. It's just how women are raised to be more nurturing than men. But it doesn't mean that a man cannot be if he has to be. I firmly believe that.
Okay. Be it society, the way we're raised or not, it seems, I'm not saying this is so, but it seems to me that mothers may be more important in raising children simply maybe because of societal factors. You pointed out that while fathers may have that nurturing ability, maybe because of society they're not expressing that nurturing. I asked my daughter that very same question, and my daughter and I, we're very close. My daughter lives in Orlando. She calls me 3 or 4 times a day. Once she called me and she said, "Daddy, I have a flat tire. What do I do?" So she calls me all the time. So I put the question to her. I call my daughter Princess, and my daughter's 27. I said, "Princess, mothers, who is more important, mothers or fathers?" She said, "Both, Daddy, both." I said, "Well, make a choice. You have to make a choice." And she said, "Mothers. Mothers are more important." So it seems to me, and I'm a social worker in the hospital, and one of the questions that I ask people in doing an assessment is, in an emergency, who do we contact? And I believe 95% of the people who are not married will say, contact my mother. So it seems to me that society in itself, while individually we may say they're both the same, it seems like society is saying that mothers are more important when raising children. Anyhow, whatever the case, you and your ex-husband have done an excellent job. And by the way, ex-husband, whomever you are, you've also done an excellent job in raising your child. So keep up the good work. And Maria, thank you so much for being with us. And I look forward to working again with you, because in the jobs that we have, sometimes we need to collaborate. So
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Issues. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're going 60 minutes today. We have a Mother's Day special, and you had the opportunity of meeting Maria Nelson, our first mother. And all our mothers are really power mothers, dynamic individuals, and I'm sure that you will be able to learn a lesson from them. Additionally, Issues now has its own website, and that is issuesbda.com. issuesbda.com. And many of you went to that website and answered the survey questions. And at the end, we're going to give you the results to that one particular question. Now we have with us Kelly Hall. Welcome, Kelly.
Good night.
Now, for those of you who may be looking at Kelly and say, "She looks familiar, where have I seen her?" Now, Kelly was a Miss Bermuda at one time.
Yes.
What year was that, Kelly?
1993.
1993, just yesterday.
Yes, just yesterday.
Now, let's talk about mothers. Many people believe that being a single parent brings with it more challenges than a two-parent home. And we kind of dealt with this earlier with Maria. But in your own particular experience, what would you say?
I feel that as long as you have good communication and you continue to work on that relationship with the person that you're co-parenting with, then you should have the best outcome. That's what I think. And I think with any family, whether it's two-parent or a single-parent home, it comes with its challenges.
Yeah. You mentioned some of the challenges that come, but can you think of just one challenge that you may have faced in your own experience?
Certainly, there are times when, there may be some financial issues. I mean, sometimes, does she really need to go to all of those extracurricular activities? I mean, 5 dance classes. So sometimes I would get a bit excited and sort of sign her up for all kinds of things. And it would not only be about the finances, but just my daughter, being a little too busy. So there were times that I had to discuss with her father to scale back when it came to various activities, because I just found that it was so important to keep her busy, but he sort of helped me to keep that balance of her being not too busy.
Very good.
And yeah.
Now, Kelly, you went to school. You completed your university degree.
Yes.
While you were a mother. Talk to us about that. How difficult was that?
It was quite hard, but with my belief in God and the strength and guidance that He provided, that was my rock and my base. In addition, I had lots of family and friend support, and you have to know how to network. I know that there were times when I'd send my daughter care packages. My mom would facilitate weekly phone calls to my daughter, and just that overall support from her father and his family also really got me through it.
Okay. I'm going to challenge you right now, and those of you who are watching and listening, you're hearing a common thread with Kelly and with Maria. Both of them they have mentioned the support, the family support. But Kelly, suppose there is not that strong family support, then what will a child face?
Certainly, you're looking at all kinds of financial issues that would affect opportunities that child may have or won't have. But a mother and father, or sometimes you find a father being a single parent also, would need to be well versed or investigate what resources there are in the community, because there are tons of resources in the community that will provide support, whether it's your church families, whether it's various organizations that help provide the basic needs for a lot of families that are out there.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of times church support and God. In your own experience with your child, it seems to me that you have found that as a pretty stabilizing base.
Oh, yes. I remember times when I would be driving my daughter to school, just that short drive here on the island, and I'd have prayers in the morning with her. We'd have books, just very simple little readings and scriptures. We'd even sing songs, and a lot of times they were spiritual songs, but other times they were just songs that we enjoyed that would help to warm us up for the day and give us a positive outlook, and it would help to just keep us close.
Yeah. Being the custodial parent, meaning that your daughter lives with you, do you find that there is a closer relationship with you that she has with you than with her dad because she's not living with him?
I know it's a valid question, but I have to say that Soraya would spend weekends with her father. Sometimes he's only able to do Friday nights because of his work schedule and things like that. But they have a very special bond and a close relationship. I would maybe answer that question by saying that the relationship are different as opposed to more or less or anything. I know I would always say to Soraya, that, how should I say, when I would tell her I love her and things like that, I would tell her, she would say sometimes, I haven't seen Daddy this week, or he was really working, he was very busy. But I would remind her that Dad loves you. You know what I'm saying? And he, he shows it in his own ways, which he has been very consistent.
Very good. Let's go back and focus a little bit more in school. While you were away at school, I know some single mothers will take their child or their children with them to the States to school or to England with them to school. What was your experience?
My experience, I made the decision to go to school. It wasn't right after my undergrad. I decided a couple of years later to go to grad school and to get my master's degree. And I must admit, I didn't really know how to bring Soraya with me. I didn't really know how to bring my daughter with me. Things were happening very quickly. I accepted going to Howard University. And next thing you know, I was making arrangements with her father and her father's mother and my family, my parents, to care for my daughter. And I thought, you know what, I'll knock this out. It'll be 2 years. I can do this, But when I finally did, my goodness, it was very difficult, but well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
The relationship that you have with your daughter, how did that work out, the 2 years that you were away? Did you come back home for Christmas or holidays?
Yes. What happened was I was home for most of the summer, and I would come home to work, and then I'd also come home at Christmas time, and then her father would bring her up, once a semester to come and visit with me, which was very nice, very kind and thoughtful of him, and that helped to bridge the gap. As I mentioned too, my mother would facilitate a weekly phone call to my daughter. I came with the idea of sending her care packages while I was over there of what mom was doing in Washington, D.C., and little gifts and candy and things of that nature. And she'd light up, and I'd probably send this like once a month. Yeah, just to keep us connected and to reassure her, Mommy's coming back soon.
Let me ask this question. You may need some time to think about it. Mothers today, especially some of the single mothers, are very young. Are mothers at a handicap the younger they are when they have a child?
Well, I think that a younger mother would need a different type of support because being a social worker by profession, I have assessed many families and many mothers and fathers, and a lot of times age is not always the deciding factor in the level of experience or know-how that mom or that father has. And I think with guidance and just good communicating with family members or even members of the public and all the services that we know are out there and all the networking, I think that they will be well equipped to handle certain situations. But they would have to seek it. They would have to have some idea, look around, experience other mothers, other families. And I think communication and networking is what will get them through.
The question that I asked Maria, and I'm going to ask you and the other mothers that we will interview, gang violence is prominent in our community today. And you, like Maria, you have a daughter. Your daughter is about ready to go to university.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Can't believe it.
What is it that you've done as a mother that has kept her out of the gang situation?
Certainly, we've always attended church, and that has really been a stabilizing comfort. I know when I was even in university, Mom said, listen for God's voice. And we're very faith-based and practice our spirituality, strength, get strength from that. But in addition to that, I knew I had, as I mentioned earlier, Soraya was very busy with extracurricular activities. Her school also had offered extracurricular activities when she was much younger, free of charge. So it made it so easy for me to sign her up for those things. At the time, I just wanted my daughter to be well-rounded and to just be exposed to all these wonderful differences and to start, sort of narrowing it down and make those decisions eventually for herself. And she enjoyed sailing, piano lessons, dance classes, just an array of things.
Is she still involved in
She's still involved with dance. She doesn't play the piano anymore. She says, I've got to dedicate my time to my studies, Mom. I need some time for my studies. So she's very serious about her education, which I told her many years ago is key to a lot of stability within her life moving forward.
Okay. Now let's go to our survey question that was on our website. Mothers more than fathers are important. Mothers more than fathers are important when raising children. What's your answer?
Wow. All that I can say is that I've played my role in Soraya's life as her mother, and her father has played his very special role in her life. There are differences, and certainly, how can I say? Let's give an example. I guess it's from the nurturing standpoint, as was mentioned earlier. I can pinpoint things that her father may not, but then he can pinpoint certain things that I don't necessarily notice or what have you. And I tend to sort of notice things, and he would reinforce me. You know, he'd back me up or whatever. But we both have our strengths, is the best way. But he comes from the man's point of view, and I may come from the little gentler side point of view. And if I had to say, we just have our different rules.
Yeah.
You know, I really can't take away from his contribution in her overall life. I just can't.
Okay, let me challenge you as I did our other guest.
Go for it.
Especially in a single home, who is usually the custodial parent, the mother or the father?
The mother.
The mother.
Yes.
As we look at gang violence and potential parents, what sex, what gender is mostly involved in gang violence, male or female?
Well, from what I have read and have experienced and observed, it's the males that tend to be. And I think that, you know, they're just looking to be part of a group. They're looking to be connected in some way to other men. And maybe there's, you know, we can go a little deeper with that. But all that I'll say is, I just feel that a father creates a wonderful balance. I think that moms and dads just complement each other. But there has to be good communication between the moms and dads for this to be successful.
Yes, I totally agree. But it seems sometimes that maybe, as I listen to you and our previous guests, that we're maybe wishing the way things should be. But again, as I've been able to point out several factors, it seems to me that the mothers are more in the life of the child than the father. Would you agree?
It tends to work out that way.
It's really hard.
I struggle because, let me put it this way, like I tell my daughter all the time, you know, not that I have to, but I remind her, your daddy loves you. Your father loves you. You love him. You have a very special bond, a very special relationship. But we just play these different roles in her life, and it complements. I really feel that without him...
And the role of the father is to be less involved?
I wouldn't say less involved. Her father is just involved.
And I'm talking about fathers. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about your daughter's
in
father.
A general way, they're involved in a different way. Without them, you know, our children would suffer. They just would. Without any sort of, you know, positive role model father figure, they would suffer.
I totally agree. The father, our children need father figures.
Definitely.
They definitely need father figures.
They bring a certain spice to the table. They really bring that element that is needed, that backbone, that strength.
Yeah. But I think what is needed and what should be there, that may not be the reality. And I think maybe that's why we're having some of the problems we now have in our Bermudian society. While fathers should be more involved, they should be more nurturing, many of them are not. And so I think this is why we face some of the problems that we are facing.
And even growing up, I know that I went to mommy with regards to certain concerns or certain worries. And I've always been able to have a very open communication and conversation with my father about just about anything. Yeah. And so I appreciated having both. And I find that my daughter in particular has both. She's able to rely on her dad for those things.
Very good. We've been talking with Kelly Hall, who, by the way, is a colleague of mine at the hospital where we are social workers. You've heard her response in terms of motherhood and fatherhood. And Kelly, on this Mother's Day, I wish you happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. I will enjoy it.
We will be right back with our next guest. Welcome back to Issues. I hope you enjoyed the interview with our two previous guests. And as we stated earlier, we're going to give the survey results at the end of this program. And that survey question again is, mothers, more than fathers are important when raising children. And later on, we'll find out what our guest now, Shawnette Sumner, what her answer is to that. And some of you may recognize Shawnette. She had her own radio program that may be back on shortly, but she's also very much involved in the community. And she is a columnist for the Bermuda Sun. And is there a particular name to your column?
No, it just shows up every Friday. But a lot of people have had difficulty recognizing me because my hair is cut very short, and my profile picture each week is shoulder-length hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bermuda Sun, the opinion section of the
Yes.
Bermuda Sun, and Shawnette writes on a variety of issues. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have this evening. Shawnette, unlike the other two mothers, you have boys.
Yes.
Now, in your experience, is it different raising boys than, say, girls?
I would say pretty much yes, it's different. But even though my situation and my circumstances were very difficult, I would say that when I look at, for instance, my friends that have daughters, my two sisters have daughters, I wouldn't trade my boys for the world. Yeah, boys are pretty easy in terms of personality,
Yeah.
and even getting dressed and just easygoing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm going to ask our survey question to you at the beginning of our conversation as
Yes.
compared to the end. And again, the survey question, mothers more than fathers are important when raising children. What has been your experience?
I think that mothers are very, very important. If I had to pick one, I would say mothers. However, I think both parents have a key role in the gender of their children. I believe that mothers help to teach their daughters all of the ladylike qualities and, just how to carry themselves as ladies into womanhood. And I think the fathers have a very key role with their sons to help them to be the man that they ought to grow up to be.
Okay. Now, I married a young lady that her father was the light of her life. Her father is deceased now, but hardly a week or a day goes by that she doesn't talk about her father. So her father played a key role in her life. In fact, sometimes, and my wife has a brother, but sometimes people didn't even know that my father-in-law had a son. They just thought he had a daughter. So I know that fathers play a key role. However, I think some of us may be wishing the way things were, as opposed to the way things are.
Yes. But on that note, also, I think the father also helps the young lady or his daughter to even look at, for instance, the qualities that she should be looking at in a male partner. So I just think fathers and mothers have a very, very key role. But unfortunately, we're just seeing more and more young people being raised in single-parent homes.
What effect does that have on society as those children become adults?
I understand that oftentimes the single parent, which is often the mother, and I know this is for Mother's Day, but I don't like to forget that there are also some awesome single fathers.
They are.
But the single mother has so much on her because she is responsible for running that household, taking care of the children, and just making sure that everything is okay. And it's hard. I remember when my oldest son, he's 25 now.
Right, you have two adults.
I have two, I have one adult son and one 15-year-old son. But when my 25-year-old son was little, there were times when I would just literally sit in the middle of the floor at him and just cry because I just couldn't understand how I was just going to get past that point. Because it does become very overwhelming, and I think people were very well-meaning when they said, oh, it'll get easier. It doesn't get easier because your children need you at every stage of their life. At every stage of their life, there is a developmental phase. even when they're going through their adolescence, they need you just as much as when they're going through their toddler years.
Yes. Yeah.
And then when you send them off to college, that's another area where they need you. You don't just send them off and leave them. And then a whole different kind of worry or concern sets in because they're not under your roof anymore. Mm-hmm. They're going to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And with being somewhere else, they're going to develop pretty much into their own. But I think if you can give them a really good foundation, they don't stray too far from it.
Yeah. Now, there are many people that they will tell you, many parents that will say, I want to be my child's friend. Can you be a friend and a parent at the same time?
I think we have to be careful with the word friend, because if you're too friendly with your children, then they don't understand where the line of discipline is drawn. I would say that I have a very good relationship with both of my sons. My eldest is very protective of me because he's seen some of the things that I've been through. So he's very, very protective. But we have a very good relationship. He will call me up sometimes, and I tell him all the time, I'm not your wife or your girlfriend. But it's not unusual for him to call me up at work and out of the blue, and he says, hey, Shawnee, just playing around. I'm like, hello, son. He says, you're my girl, right? I'm just calling to tell you I love you and have a good day.
My goodness.
And that's just the extent of his conversation.
Yeah. Let me ask you, you said something that brings a question to my mind, and I believe you brought your sons up by yourself.
Yes, I did.
Is there a tendency for children to become protective of the custodial parent?
I believe, not even just based on my situation, but again, looking at my friends who have sons, most of them anyway, sons are very protective of their mothers. I don't understand exactly why, but I see it with myself, and like I said, I see it with many other people. Sons are very protective. And in my case, I wonder why sometimes, because my oldest son used to always say, especially when he was going through his teen years, living with my mama is like living in boot camp. Because I was very strict. I was very strict with him about everything. And I felt I had to be, because his personality type. Whereas with my 15-year-old, he has it easy because he has a very easygoing personality. He's very easy to manage. He's very easy to get along with. He grumbles and complains about things sometimes, but his brother is his idol. He worships the ground his brother walks on. The unfortunate thing is that he's not here. He's away in college. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned discipline. As a single mother, was it more difficult to discipline? Because many times in a two-parent home, you kind of have the good cop, bad cop. Yes. But in a single-parent home, you're the good cop, bad cop. So
exactly.
What was that discipline like?
It's hard because my oldest son, I think I must have spanked him every day. He was always in trouble for mischief, just mischief. But the same hands that spank are the same hands that hug.
Yes.
They're the same hands that clap when you go to the school event and praise, and the same lips that are shouting and yelling sometimes are the same lips that you say nice things to them. Well done, keep going, you can do this. They're the same lips that give you that good night kiss. Yeah. So when you have to be that one person for everything, it's very difficult, and it's an extremely difficult balancing act. Yeah.
Now, as a mother, especially a single mother, it seems like it's possible to have 2, 3 children from the same mother, and they be completely different. Now, what do you attribute that to, and what skills would a mother need in able to raise all her children equally when they may be different?
Yeah. Mothering, parenting, whatever you want to call it, I think comes through trial and error. And you
So
just
you
have
say
to,
trial and error.
trial and error.
Well,
meaning,
when you say that,
yeah.
it makes me believe, well, trial and error. Maybe I'll be lucky and bring this one up okay, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll make some mistakes.
And that's, unfortunately, that's just how it is sometimes, you know. And you just, when I look at, for instance, my sons, I'm very proud of what both of them have become. But my heart also aches for the mother who has tried really, really hard, but winds up having a child that has let her down. Maybe, you know, they're out there caught up in bad company. Sometimes they may even be incarcerated. Sometimes, like for instance, I have a very good friend of mine who is struggling right now with a young son, same age as my youngest, who no matter what she does, I mean, this child is utterly rude and disrespectful. You know, she's at her wit's end. She doesn't know what to do. So my heart goes out to people like that because I just did the best I could.
Well, that was going to be my
Yeah.
next question. What is it, do you think, that one mother would do, and her child is this, sings in the choir, prays every day, goes to school, no problem, and another mother, the child the same age, is involved in gang, kicked out of class every day?
Right.
What could you attribute that
Yeah.
to? Is it parent? What is it? Bad genes?
Sometimes I think it is bad parenting. One of the columns that you spoke of, you know, that I recently wrote about was how mothers in particular are just hanging out there instead of being at home and spending quality time with their children. I had to give most of that up. You know, it's only here recently that I can have these types of opportunities because my oldest son is away, but the 15-year-old, I don't have to worry about him getting into mischief and being left to his own devices.
Tell me one thing that you are doing with that 15-year-old that's keeping him out of gang violence. Because, you know, 15, 14, that's the age they start to get involved, if not younger, start to get involved in gang violence.
Right.
So what is one thing you're doing in your home to help your son?
I spend a lot of time actually explaining to my son how I feel. And I let him know what I'm doing and how it's going to benefit him. And I think he has a much better appreciation for me because oftentimes I leave my day job and I literally run in the house, change my clothes, and run out to my night job. You know, so he sees this as something I have to do. I don't want to do it, but I have to because, you know, he has to be taken care of. And his brother, for the most part, is pretty much independent. But, you know, they never stop calling mom.
Yeah.
If my 25-year-old needs something while he's out there in college, he's going to call. Mom, I need X, Y, and Z. So I just have to do what I have to do.
We're talking with Shanette Sumner, author, educator, master mom. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Issues. And some of you may have just tuned in and said, well, Issues is still on. I thought it went off 20 minutes ago. Well, this is our Mother's Day special. And we are talking to some dynamic mothers. And besides being dynamic, they're actually sharing with us ingredients that can help our children be better. We're talking right now with Shanette Sumner. Some of you may recognize the name. She has a page in the Bermuda Sun and also had a radio program on Mix 106, I believe.
That's
that
correct.
may be coming on again. And we're just having a fantastic conversation. Now, Shanette, I read one of your articles, and I need to read this. You said, you don't have to blow out my candle to make yours shine brighter. Wow. You don't have to blow out my candle to make yours shine brighter. As we look at raising children, how does that relate?
I think in general, it speaks to the fact that, for instance, a lot of people brag about a lot of the things that they do. And I'm very, I guess to some degree, just quite humble about just doing what I do. I do a lot of stuff, and I don't brag about it at all. But people know that they can call me for different ideas, opinions, advice, etc. And I think one of the things that we need to teach our children is to get to that point, to be able to just go about doing what you have to do without any big fanfare. If the fanfare is going to come, it's going to come. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. But it's just important to understand that we have to also look at the achievements of other people and to respect and appreciate all the good things that other people do as well. So when it comes to raising children, especially if you are a single parent, it is important, very, very important, to teach our young people that when it comes to success and all of that stuff, you can have it, but you don't need to brag about it.
You mentioned success. Do you think that success is something that everyone can achieve?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Yes, definitely.
What about the economic plight that we're in at the present time? What about those who grew up in a single-parent home?
Right.
What are those who struggle through school? Is success still attainable for them?
Definitely. And one of the things I taught both of my sons, and I said to them, because, sometimes we hear people say, oh, well, the reason a particular person is like this is because they didn't have their father in their life. And I always said to my sons, don't you ever let me hear you say that you are a particular way because you didn't have your father. You must never use that as an excuse for failure. But I told them to use that as a reason to succeed.
Wow.
And both of them have done just that.
Yeah. So then I think it's the way one looks at the handicaps they have. One can use a handicap as a stepping stone, and the other one can use it as something that beats them down in the ground.
Exactly.
Now, how did you get that lesson across to your son? Is it just by repeating?
Well, especially with the oldest one, everything had to be repeated a million times. But a lot of it also had to do with the way I was raised. I was raised in a house where I had my grandparents. I had my mom, and my mom at the time was married to my father, who was very abusive. Thankfully, she made the choice to get out of that relationship, and she married someone else when I was quite young. I was, I think, about 9 or 10 years old. And I've never referred to him as my stepfather. That is my daddy. And I can honestly say that for the past few decades, he has been the best father that anybody could have ever had. So he taught my sister and I a lot of things about life and about respect and about kindness and about hard work. That's all he does. He and my mom, they're very hard workers. And so I think, like I said, a lot of it is from what I learned. And so I'm just trying to instill that into my sons and all young people that I encounter.
One of the things that I've heard from you, I've heard from Kelly, and I've heard from Maria, is support, especially that family support. And one additional thing that I've heard from you, don't use your handicaps as something to keep you down. Now, also, you mentioned spending time together. Now, as a single parent, somebody that has to work, where does one find time?
If it's one word in the English dictionary that I absolutely do not like, it's the word busy. And it's a word that I don't think anyone will say they hear me use, the word busy. I think it's just casual. I can't do this, I'm busy. I try to get to it, but I'm busy. Everybody's busy. Like, what is busy? So I think we make time for the things that we want to make time for, because you could be in the middle of your busyness, but let somebody call you up and say, hey, something exciting, or I want you to do something, I want to give you something. Watch how quickly that busyness goes away. So I don't like that word. I think we have to get to a point where, because we know what we have to do, we just have to get on and do it. And I'm not here to say that it's easy. As I said in the beginning, it is very difficult. It is extremely difficult to do a lot of the things that I may want to do, even from a financial point of view. It's really, really hard when you are out there working and earning one paycheck that basically has to support 3 people. It is very hard. So I just go about doing what I have to do.
Yeah. Now, one of the questions that I didn't ask the others, and I'll ask you based on your experience or what you may see your friends do. Single moms who want to date, is that possible? Or
it's possible, but my 2 sons will say they haven't seen me with men in my house, in and out of my house. It's unacceptable. And the other thing for me is that I've learned that there are certain things that I'm not prepared to just settle for, just for the sake of being in a relationship. So I may meet somebody, but as time goes on, whether it be a month, 2 months, 3 months, when I start to see things in that other person, which I know are not going to be beneficial for me or my sons, particularly the youngest one, it has to end. So I'm quite okay with being single. And sometimes I just don't want to be bothered with anybody because I'm tired a lot of the time. But there are mothers who have men in their houses all the time. And as an educator, I've been exposed to that, where you're in a class of young people, and this week they're calling this guy uncle, and 3 weeks later it's a different uncle. And then some of them go so far as to refer to mom's male friend as daddy, and it's a mess, because oftentimes these men also have children of their own, which they're not taking care of. But yet these women still bond with them in some sort of a relationship and think it's going to work out for them. And at the end of the kerfuffle or the chaos, this child is still caught up in the middle of it. A year into this, whatever the woman was doing, this poor child has 6 or 7 uncles and daddies. It's crazy. So that's a sacrifice as well. To be able to date. I think my oldest son, he always says, "Mommy, as long as you're happy, you find somebody that you like, it's all I worry about is that you'll be happy." That's the protective one. The youngest one, I actually asked him not too long ago, and I said, suppose Mommy was to start dating somebody, what should he be like? And he started to giggle, because he wasn't used to me having that question, but he answered it. He said, "Mommy, I don't care who you pick, as long as he's not like my daddy." And those words came right out of his mouth. But I'm not in a hurry to be in a relationship just for the sake of being in a relationship.
As an educator, and I believe you had your own school at one time.
Yes, I did.
Over the years, have you seen the behavior of the children change?
Definitely. Yes, it has. And I think it's changed because parenting is not as tight, for lack of a better word, as it should be. I think parents really need to pull up their socks and parent their children and be aware of where they are, who they are socializing with. My son went to a sleepover the other day, and that's something that he's never done. Both of my sons are like me. We want to be in your own bed. But school was out, and a bunch of the boys were getting together, and the mother was on vacation, and she said they can all spend the night and hang out and eat pizza and watch And I got on the phone and I wanted to call the mother and I wanted to ask all the questions that would have been asked as if I were a little girl.
Let me add, I'm interrupting you. Your son is 15,
He's
and
15.
some people listening, I said, what? He is 15? What is she doing? I mean, how did your son feel about you?
First thing he said, Mommy, you don't need to call her. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I need to call her. So I did.
Yeah.
I called, and I even went so far as because I think there were 7 boys spending the night. And I called her and I said, well, what can I bring? Can I bring some pizza or anything? And his in the back said, oh, Mommy, you don't have to do that. But that's just what I'm going to do.
This evening, we have been talking with Shanette Sumner. Again, it's been a delight, and you may have noticed that we did spend a little bit extra time talking with Shanette. I enjoyed her experience and what she had to share with us. So don't forget to read her article in the Bermuda Sun.
Every Friday.
Every Friday. We'll be right back to share the results of our survey with you. Welcome back to Issues. Now for the survey results. Let me read the question. Mothers are more important than fathers when raising children. 12.5% of you said yes, mothers are more important. However, 87.5% of you said no, mothers are not more important than fathers when raising children. Let me challenge that a little bit. I do believe that when little children go to school, especially the first day of school, mothers are generally with them, not fathers. When children are sick, one of the first individual they cry for is their mother. When children go shopping for clothes, mothers are generally with them. So I'm not sure if your answers to these questions reflected the way you would like it to be, or actually how it is in reality. Because in reality, it really seems that mothers are more involved with children than fathers. However, those are our results. Thank you for participating. We'll have our Father's Day survey in the next few weeks, and I'll let you know when you can go to the website and vote. Should you wish to make any more comments, you may go to issuesbda.com. Again, that's issuesbda.com. Click on the contact page and give us your comments. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.